to South Carolina to engage with the tribe's attorneys, and more importantly, to engage at the grassroots with Catawba citizens. And that's what's been talked about a lot. And basically what we did is we went to Golden Corral multiple times a week, and people from the United States might be familiar with this hallowed institution. It is
during the process of 6 months, by the way.
It is the best all-you-can-eat buffet you can possibly imagine, and I think we gained at least 5 or 10 pounds by the end of it all.
$10 per person, 7 if it's senior. So you could really feed a lot of people in a bootstrapped way.
I tell you what, if you haven't had fried chicken for breakfast, you're missing out. Another core element of all is having printed material. Just, breaking bread, explaining step by step why it'd be beneficial, printed materials, being human, essentially, just being authentic. And that's really important because, especially in Indian country, they've been frankly screwed over so many times, their bullshit detectors are off the charts. They can tell authenticity immediately.
That is also a strategy that helps everyone here working in a country that was colonized. Yeah. This comes with its own histories, right? And we can't really just set them aside while we're trying to new communities. So we really have to, I forgot who said yesterday, deal with the world as it is. And we really wanted to present a strategy that felt natural.
Yeah, and it actually paid dividends. So because we worked with Catawba citizens and elders, we actually developed a grassroots movement, and they actually actively lobbied their government to secure a special session of their legislature to pass the zone into law. And we actually worked with them over Christmas to pack all of this printed material.
It was half ton of printed materials.
Yeah, it was a half ton of printed materials.
That we had, that's our kitchen, that's Christmas.
Yeah. Nathalie's grandmother was there for Christmas, and instead of, opening presents or what have you, she was in the back of the car hand-delivering packets with us to Catawba citizens. So yeah, that's what we spent doing, and it worked. So yeah, this is us at what they call the Longhouse, which is their legislative body. Imagine, an amphitheater. It's all round and it's flat on one side. It's all the way around. So it's like a Thunderdome for politics, essentially. But that's where the Catawba citizens, they hold their business. And that's us tallying up the votes of the vote.
This was 6 months after doing the stakeholder alignment process.
Yeah, exactly. And you cannot see his face right here, but this is Michael Castle-Miller. He is an OG in the space that has developed numerous legal frameworks and actually helped develop Prospero as well.
And on February 19, 2022, it passed into law. So it's law. It's not an MOU, it's actual law.
Yeah, so that's a signature of the chief. That's how many votes. It was 99 to...
And the Catawba were very happy, as you can see.
Yeah.
Very happy. It was really a grassroots movement. And I think that's something that we did very well. We really focused on aligning with the community, but in a way that wasn't just superficial or to tick a box. We also, from the way we structured the zone, we ensured that the Catawba have a say and have the biggest stake and have an incentive, A, for this to work, B, for this to make money, C, for the regulations to be innovative so they can attract people like us. And maybe, Joe, you can talk a bit about the structure and what were the mechanisms that we put into place to ensure that this is a project where the local community benefits first and foremost. So it's not a project from some outsiders who come here, want to create an enclave. No, this is their project.
So this is actually the enabling legislation. Again, you can't read it very well, but I can give you a brief overview. So what it did is first it created a commercial and corporate code. All y'all are jurisdiction nerds, so you know what ULEX is. Basically, it's taking best practices for common law and establishing that as the common commercial and corporate law. In addition to that, it created two different entities. One of them is an instrumentality of the nation, which just means it's just another department of the government called the Zone Authority. It is managed by a nimble 5-person commission, all of Catawba citizens, and its goal as the government body is promulgating regulations at the same level as U.S. state, as well as enforcing them.
And it has the same powers and immunities of a sovereign.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually more so than many states. And in terms of the second body, it's the for-profit management company. It's actually 51% owned by the nation and 49% by private partners. That's important for a whole host of reasons, including a lot of sovereign immunity privileges, as well as a lot of different forms of financing available to 51% owned entities. And that is the organization that Nathalie and I head. And that organization is responsible for the business development, technology development, and marketing for the zone. And, like I said, we have a property in North Carolina. It is a small trailer up near their casino, and that is where, so one of the initial business cases that we have is similar to Delaware. We register companies. So you can register an LLC, single C corp, and what have you within the zone, and it's associated to an address that's on their North Carolina reservation. And all good things start small. And right now we have a trailer, but I'd like to remind people that all good things start small, as this conference is all about. And right here, this is Jackie Canty. He shall be in future history books, forever changing federal Indian law in the United States. He's been one of the most instrumental people in pushing for this forward, and his love for his nation is unbounded, and I consider him a really near and dear friend, and without him, it wouldn't be possible.
So what have we done in terms of regulations? Oh yeah. That's
this is one of the proudest moments of our life. This was us lifting up a mailbox at the property, because if you set up a mailbox, then you can then receive mail for your company and allow for proper registration.
Yes. So yeah, these are some of the regulations that we have passed. Joe, talk about that regulatory framework that we built on top of the law that was passed in 2022.
Yeah, so we have the statute, which is the law that was passed by the Catawba Digital Nation, and then the nation delegated a lot of regulatory authority to the zone authority to promulgate regulations on top of that statutory law. Some of the first are just a basic administrative procedure regulation based on what was used by many U.S. states, which just says that the government is accountable, that there is a common period for rules and regulations, et cetera. So it's easily recognizable by attorneys all across the United States. In addition to that, we passed numerous regulations concerning digital assets. Specifically, we passed a version of the Wyoming set of definitions, but improved upon. In addition to that, we were the first jurisdiction to adopt the Uniform Law Commission's amendments to the UCC, Article 12. Since we combine both of these things, arguably we have the most robust set of definitions for digital assets in the United States, potentially even the world. After that, then we passed a regulation concerning DAOs. It is a streamlined version of Wyoming and Tennessee's version of the DAO LLC Act, as well as allowing for one to form a DAO UNA. And UNA is an unincorporated nonprofit association. And essentially, it's an unincorporated entity. So it has a lot of the same principles of a DAO. It relies a lot on its own governing principles rather than statutory law. You don't have to have a registered agent, for instance, but at the same time, it has limited liability. You're able to have bank accounts, et cetera. Because it's associated with their digital ID, which every DAO member has to have a digital ID. We haven't launched it yet. However, we've been working with TBD, which is a subsidiary of Block, on their DID solution. It's in staking. So we should be launching that program allowing for DAO UNAs fairly soon.
We have 2 minutes, but maybe talk about our banking framework.
Way ahead of you. Okay, and this is just some of you like right here. Oh yeah, we got some pretty good press. Yeah, Forbes, Fortune, several times in CoinDesk, Bitcoin Magazine, Charlotte Observer, etc.
And what are we doing in terms of banking? We have 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's the most exciting thing we're working on right now. So, in the United States, they have what they call a dual banking system, which means that not just the federal government, but states have the capability to charter financial institutions. Since tribes are at least at the same level as the U.S. states in regards to commercial and business regulation, that means they also have that capability. So we passed a banking regulation partially based off of South Dakota because it has the most assets under management of any state chartered system in the United States, as well as Wyoming because of their provisions to incorporate technology and digital assets. But also very interestingly, we also incorporated part of North Dakota. Does anyone here know anything interesting about North Dakota banking?
They're the only state with a state charter bank or?
A public bank.
Okay.
Yeah. There's only 2 public banks in the United States. One is the Public Bank of North Dakota, the other is the Federal Reserve. So the Catawba Indian Nation would have their own public bank that would be Bank of Banks, as well as the Bank of the Nation, as well as serving as the regulator.
And why, with people working in this space, or fintechs care about this at all?
Well, for one, it provides a better way to access Fed payment rails, et cetera. Because of tribes, there is a certain deference called the Federal Indian Laws of Construction that you have to treat tribes on a government-to-government basis. So let's say Custodia is having some difficulty with attaching themselves to the federal system. There is a significant less problem with that when it comes to tribes.
So companies like Venmo, Chime,
Or X, for instance, they're grabbing up money transmitter license like their Candy. So yeah, different institutions that you could form under a code. So a money transmitter, a trust, a special depository institution, a credit union, as well as a full service bank.
and anybody can apply or try to apply.
We also do have a stablecoin regulation out for comment, and then basically, if you want to be a stablecoin, you have to have one of these financial institutions and have your reserves have to be 1-to-1 and based on tier 1 financial assets, ones that are highly liquid and have less volatility.
So to close, why would anyone here care about?
Well, because if it's almost impossible to set up a charter in the United States. And that's not to say that we're going to make it easier. In fact, we're going to have, for the application, we have FDIC, essentially, application. And we're going to have the same rules and regulations for applying for that. But at the same time, we're a nimble organization that's geared towards innovation. We already have our banking commissioners. They've already been contracted. We're going to be making a press release fairly soon about that. And as well as our system is innovation friendly and has innovation friendly regulators, and we have several organizations that have signed LOIs stating their interest that they want to charter within themselves.
So to close, if you have a DAO, if you want to create an entity, I totally recommend you to go to the Catawba Digital Economic Zone, DAO LLC, DAO owner. Closing thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, we haven't really talked about this much yet, but just a thought to throw out there. Executive orders don't apply in Indian country, only congressional law does. And for people that are interested in AI, there's only really one rule that applies to AI in the United States, and that's an executive order by Biden. So as we're going forward with physical space, there might be some arbitrage opportunity there.
Dude!
Sweet. Dude! Thank you so much.
Things have been pretty bad for Indians in the United States for like 150 years, but they have treaties, and treaties in the U.S. are part of the U.S. Constitution. What we've seen in the last couple of decades is that the Supreme Court, specifically Justice Gorsuch, seem to be really sympathetic to Indians, up to the point that it looks like recently they turned over half the state of Oklahoma to Indian tribes. If you guys create this, can you franchise it out to Indian tribes around the country? Can you save America by saving the Indian tribes?
I will say first, the Catawba Indian Nation's interested is talking with other federally recognized tribes. I will say from a personal standpoint, I do see that zones are one of the few things that could actually save it from decline, or at least to lessen it to a certain extent. So I very strongly feel that. Yeah. Again, that's my personal opinion.
I think there's a question in the back.
Oh, sorry. One more point. With the advent of Delaware no longer being cool anymore because of Elon Musk, remember to disrupt Delaware and set up a Catawba LLC. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Oh, yeah, all good. So is Catawba a federally recognized tribe?
Yes, since 1993. Well, they had it in 1945. Then a series of tribes lost their sovereignty in the Indian elimination period. But except for the Lumbee have gotten their status back, including the Catawba.
Cool. And so how in criminal law do you deal with Indian, white criminal investigations by the Federal Bureau of Investigation or with the BIA, and then claim true sovereignty?
We don't particularly care about criminal code, just like Prospera. They defer to the criminal code of Honduras. We mostly care about spurring business to the commercial code, regulatory code, etc. The criminal code of South Carolina and North Carolina is fairly reasonable.
Yeah. Okay. And so is this on tribal trust land or is it on privately held corporate land?
Yeah. So the stuff we're operating on is trust land. The Grace complex right there, that's currently privately fee simple land. The intention is to put it into trust, and there is the BI interior process of making that happen.
Got it. So it is on fee simple land currently.
Currently, yeah, the Grace Complex, the place where you're registering companies, that is in trust land. And for those that don't know, trust land means in the sovereign jurisdiction. It can be confusing.
Yeah, and fee simple land gets a little bit more complex, especially when, so as you're thinking about inviting global citizens into these jurisdictions, perhaps, then how does that complicate things when you have fiat citizens entering into these zones that are effectively still governed by the United States federal government?
So they're not citizens. They have a company. You know, that's a fundamental thing. You're not going to be a Catawba citizen here.
You might be a citizen of Spain or the UK coming and actually entering as a non-Indian into Indian trust land.
And you'd be having, at least in the digital aspect, the point is that you're forming an entity under Catawba law, thereby giving Catawba jurisdiction, even if the directors are somewhere else in the world, either in the United States or elsewhere in the world. Correct.
So does that raise any concerns?
Well, what?
About future legislation or governance within the zone?
It's like when you have a Delaware company, doesn't really matter if you're from China or from the US for the purposes of the money.
Yeah, Delaware doesn't do KYC, we do. So we have better standards than you do.
But again, don't go to Delaware.
Yeah, exactly. Disrupt Delaware.
All right, this has to be the very last quick question. I can see there's a lot more questions, so please take a picture and send a message and find them and chat right after this.
Happy to talk anytime with anyone about anything.
Well, don't promise that.
Almost anything, anytime.
Yeah, question very broadly, and I can take my answer offline if you'd like to talk about this afterwards maybe, there are many instances of things where you can be correct as you want to be, but if you're in a legal system that doesn't choose to acknowledge that, as has happened so many times before with, cases where, the sovereignty of indigenous nations and treaties entered into with our federal government have been disregarded and set aside. I'm just wondering, what degree of confidence, with acknowledging no certainties, what degree of confidence do you have on the legal foundation? How solid is the footing that you feel you're standing on?
Perfect. That's a fantastic
Simple question. Very simple. Yes or no answer, no.
Yes, very confident. Here's why. For one, in those past periods, they didn't have political power. They had legal authority, but they had very little political power. As a consequence of the revenue that they have generated from gaming, which is fungible with political power in many aspects, especially in lobbying, they have a lot more influence and are able to help enforce their legal rights, as is evidenced by a bunch of legal cases. In addition to that, they're deeply embedded in the U.S. federal government currently. This is a consequence of what they call 8A contracts, which is federally recognized tribes have a preferred advantage when it comes to securing federal contracts, which means that they can get a lot of federal contracts, which means that they're deeply embedded within the federal government, within the Department of Energy, Department of Defense, et cetera, providing contracts to them. So they're already deeply embedded. And secondarily, as Supreme Court cases like was mentioned before, McGirt versus Oklahoma, the tribal sovereignty school of thought has been particularly strong and is dominant in the Supreme Court right now, as well as all federal courts. And as a consequence, not only is there political will and the legal framework dating back to the Constitution, but is the dominant force of interpretation of federal Indian law in the United States.
And additionally, or as the bottom layer, to take back anything, to reverse anything that the zone authority has done, and to remove sovereignty away from the Catawba, including the zone, there will have to be an act of Congress unanimously, which is very unlikely.
So good luck with that in Congress to do anything.
All right, this is one of the most amazing projects. I can tell, save your questions. I can tell there's more. And let's have one more round of applause for Joseph and Nathalie.